I'm joined by Mark Pitman here, freelance journalist, and you've worked with UEFA. I think maybe you should introduce yourself. You'll
Yeah,
know a
no
lot
worries.
more than me.
Yeah, like I said, my name is Mark Pitman. I'm a freelance football writer. At the moment, I'm the Welsh football correspondent for UEFA. I do three different roles with UEFA, and I'm also the senior reporter for the FAW. So I do a lot of the website content for the Football Association of Wales. I also do some other ad hoc freelance work then for a couple of magazines like Kicker and World Soccer, as and when.
So I think we'll start then with, your experiences within football. You've interviewed some of the biggest names, your Ryan Giggs, your Gareth Bales, um, Joe Allen's one of my favorite footballers. How do you sort of prepare yourself uh, for those sort of situations where you are put with huge superstars? How has your experiences in the industry prepared you for those moments?
Yeah, I think you said the right word, preparation. Preparing for the interview is the biggest thing. I think 95% of doing these interviews is being prepared and having questions because you really need to do your research. I think that's the biggest thing is on the brief for the interview, whatever the interviews, what specific topics you need to discuss. Um, I think it comes with experience as well. I mean, just getting past the fact that you are interviewing Premier League winners, Champions League winners, World Cup winners. I've sat down with people like Gareth Bale many times, people like Thierry Henry, Joe Allen, Aaron Ramsey, Ryan Giggs, Jens Lehmann, Edgar Davids. It's just so many you forget some of them sometimes. It's mad really when you think of it. But I think it's just being prepared is the biggest thing, and I think just being confident in yourself, even if you are the first time you do it, it can be daunting. I remember one of my first sit down interviews was with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to talk about his winning goal in the '99 Champions League final. So it's been quite mad when you think of it, to be doing that. But yeah, just being prepared and getting good questions, delivering the first couple of questions well, listening to the answers, and trying to get into a conversation rather than just reading questions from a script is quite important as well, so that you do feel like you're having a bit of a connection, um, and you can sort of bounce off the answers that they give, expand on a couple of answers that they give, and I think they're the most important things. But always just always really be prepared and just have extra questions as well in case you go to some interviews and the player or the manager can give really really short answers. And if you've only got like 5 or 6 questions prepared, then you're not going to be talking for more than 2 minutes. So it's always good to be over prepared, if you like, and have a few backup questions in case.
Yeah, definitely. So you talked a lot there about, sort of having a connection with your interviewee. How important is it? You said you sat down with Gareth Bale a lot of times. That's sort of what comes with your job as the sort of correspondent for UEFA for Wales. How important is it making connections with those people that you interview on the regular, building up rapport with people that whether that's media managers, coaches, players?
Yeah, obviously every situation's different. I think once you've interviewed somebody a couple of times, they will recognise you. Because I interviewed Chris Coleman a number of times when he was Wales manager. So even where I got to the name, he knew my name. He knew where I was. He would call me Mark when he saw me and that sort of thing. And so you definitely have a lot of trust there. I mean, when these big players now, I think they get a lot of media training and they are wary of the media. So I think when they see somebody new for the first time, they are probably a bit wary, a bit cautious. They don't really open up. But I think once they know you and they trust you a bit, they will open up. I think you just got to get over that initial first interview, first meeting. But again, just having good relationships with the clubs or the press officers or the national teams, whoever they are, wherever the clubs, whoever the players are with, just to get that trust and just respect, and just so they know that you're not going to ask any, difficult or anything controversial. You're not going to write anything overly negative for the sake of it. That you are going to be fair in what you do. I think once you have that trust, then and once the press officer or the media officer of the club or the National Association have have that trust in you that will pass on to the player or the manager that you're interviewing as well.
So we've already sort of talked about the surreal moments so far in your career, sitting down opposite, Champions League, multiple Champions League winners. How was your experience as sort of, you know, as a fan of Welsh football during the 2016 Euros? How was that? Like, did that feel like a real like pinch me moment to be there in that moment working, not
Yeah,
as a
it was
fan
mad.
working?
Yeah, 2016 was crazy. I remember that I'd started working for UEFA in about 2013, and I think it was just before the qualifiers for Euro 2016 started, which would have been summer of 2014. UEFA asked every reporter for every country in Europe, would they be available to go to the Euros if your team qualified? And Wales hadn't qualified at that time for like since 1958. So I just read the email. I was like, yeah, whatever. We haven't, we're not going to be there. We're never there. Um, and then obviously the campaign went the way it did, and you could just sort of feel the momentum, the win over Belgium and Cardiff and everything. And yeah, Wales qualified. So I got to spend, well, obviously when Wales qualified, then it was about, are we going to get up to the group? Are we even going to score a goal? Are we even going to, could we actually win a game out there? Nobody really knew. But I was out there working for UEFA as the Welsh reporter, so I got to stay near the team hotel. I travelled to every game on the team plane back and forth. I was at every game, obviously covering it for UEFA. So in the week, you'd watch training every day, and you'd do an interview or two interviews in the afternoon. So it was just a really, really incredible experience. Like I said, I was being a fan as well. I had a lot of friends who'd paid thousands of pounds to go out there as fans, whereas I was being paid to have this absolute privileged lifestyle, which lasted in the end, where we thought it might last 10 days, it lasted something like 35 days I was out there. So it was crazy. But I think the one I always remember about that, because I was only like working. I had a normal day job at the time. I was working in the government back then. I was doing freelance football reporting as a sideline, as an extra, like a part time on the side. So I'd taken like a leave of absence from work to go to the Euros. So I always remember just before the semi final, because Gareth Bale at that time I think he's the world's most expensive footballer, because it was just before Pogba had gone back to United. And so him and Ronaldo had been in the same Real Madrid team that had just won the Champions League. And then they were playing each other now in this Euro semi-final. So if you can imagine, it's like a massive event, because like Real Madrid, biggest team in the world, Champions League winners, and Ronaldo, biggest player in the world, up against the world's most expensive player in Gareth Bale. And so huge worldwide interests, like televised in like 200 odd countries around the world, and all this interest from everywhere. And Gareth Bale did 3 sit-down interviews before the semi-final. So 3 15-minute interviews. One was with, I think, BBC or ITV. One might have been with BBC and ITV, the two, and one with UEFA. So I was one of 3 people who got to sit down with the world's most expensive footballer before his most important game of his life. It's some worldwide event. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, how am I, when I think of the thousands of professional football journalists and writers, experienced people all over the world who would have loved to be in that position, and I'm here doing a 15-minute interview with Gareth Bale, and I'm thinking, how did I get here? What am I doing here? It's mad. So I think that's always like the standout story for me when I think back to the Euros.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's what everyone in sort of my position as a student, that's sort of what we dream of, those moments. But like you said there, you sort of how did you get it? That's sort of the question that
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
everyone
and
would be asking.
yeah, and I think that's why it's such a. I've told my story a few times. I've done a few talks about it as well, because I didn't follow any conventional route. So when I was, say, your age, I finished. I went to college to my A levels. I had no interest in journalism or anything like that. I was going back in the 90s now, so there wasn't many. You didn't have specific sports journalist courses or football courses available in universities then. But I had no interest in it anyway. But I was a big football fan. So
Yeah.
my local team, Port Talbot Town, um, I volunteered there. I'm just doing the odd jobs, go on the gate or run the club shop or something like that. And while I was there in about 2000, I started doing the website and the match program just because basically I was the only one who could use probably a computer. I was like 40 years younger than everybody else there. So I started like the club website, then the match program. I was the club's media officer, voluntary, and I did that for about 10 years. And but through that, I got to know a lot of people in the FAW and in the local press. So I was always submitting like reports to Wales Online and people like that, so getting the FAW stuff, contributions for things. And I think when I was about 30, my early 30s, um, Wales Online asked me to write a regular, uh, like a weekly, like a reporter, like a blog post on domestic football in Wales because they weren't doing any sort of coverage of the Welsh Premier League back then. So I started doing that, and I had a bit of a taste for it, and I really enjoyed it, and I sort of built up a bit of a following on social media and stuff from doing just writing about Welsh Premier League and domestic football generally, and some international football as well. And it really snowballed from there. Then I started doing some ad hoc freelance work from the FAW just because people knew me from when I was up at Talbot. And from that, the FAW put me forward for a role with UEFA when they were looking for a new Welsh football correspondent. So I was really in the right place at the right time. But I had absolutely no qualifications for it at all. I've got no journalism degree. I got certainly nothing like you've got available to you now and what you were doing now. But it was just purely from volunteering at my local club, getting to know people on the FAW, doing good work when I was asked to do work for them, and just building up a good reputation from that. Obviously, I fell into UEFA then at the right time because it was after that the Wales started qualifying for things, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that's how I got into it. And now I do it completely full time now. So I've given up the day job I was doing. I've given that up a few years ago now, and I'm just doing uh, freelance football writing now for various people.
That's like we've
I don't know
talked
if you
about
find
before.
that, I don't know if that's good for you as a student or not, to find that there are, I didn't need to have a degree in anything to get where I was, even though
I,
that's,
I I think your story sort of highlights the importance of, actually having work experience and also getting to know people in your own community. I think that's what a lot of this course is about. Still,
yeah,
we learn amazing skills and get a degree at the end of it that we can show to potential employers that we are trained as sports journalists. But also, if you don't have you know the hours of work experience to show, to back up what you're doing, you know, you're getting out to football games every week. You've got a work ethic, you've
yeah,
put in the hours, you've got experiences. I think you can probably say, yeah, every week is different in football in this industry, and especially in media. As a media manager of a football club, things can come up. Uh, I think that's just in
yeah. It's
terms
got to
of.
be I think it's got to be a lifestyle thing for you. You can't just sort of switch off. It's not a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job. It is. You've got to put in the hard yards. You've got to put in the late nights traveling, extensive traveling, like I said, unsociable hours. But like you said, you can have your degree, and there's a lot of skills that you learn from it. Obviously, it does, there's probably a lot of things that I could learn from doing a degree, even though I do what I'm doing, I've done what I've done. I've probably learned along the way different things. Probably learned very different skills, and I haven't learned probably things in the right way. Um, but the biggest thing I think is just proving, having a degree doesn't prove you can actually do the job. You've got to go out and you've got to volunteer with clubs. You've got to do some part-time work with clubs. Just get as much experience as you can. But as important as the experience is, the most important thing is the people you get to know and the people who you show that you're trustworthy and that you're good at your job and you're reliable, and that when they are looking for somebody, because the difference of having somebody, if they're looking for somebody to fill a position and they've got somebody who's got a degree but very little experience, they're going to go with somebody who's got good experience and they know they can trust and they can rely on because they've worked with them before. That will
Yeah.
carry far more weight every time.
Yeah, and I guess having a degree and the experience to sort of back it up is like,
Yeah.
you know, the sort of what everyone on this course and on similar courses should be sort of aspiring to, and you know, looking
Yeah,
at
the
someone
danger
like
is you
yourself.
don't want to get you don't want to get caught in the trap of just thinking I don't need to do any volunteer work or any additional external work because I'm doing my degree. It really is so important just to get out and meet people and get to know people and do work for people that they know they can rely on you and you know you can produce on deadlines and stuff like that.
Thank you so much for your insight, and uh, definitely helped me in terms of, you know, seeing how to get into the industry, and definitely a unique story that I think will be great to share with everyone.